Welcome to the Are You Ready Summit from the Media Lab here from Bavaria. We're going to talk about paid content in just a few minutes, but before we do that, we have 3 startups from the Media Lab here, and they present for 3 minutes each.
Is this the... Yeah, okay. Hi, I'm Vanessa from Followistic, and I'd like to talk to you about our startup today. So doing our research for our product idea, we realized that getting readers' attention is not about saying it louder or more often. It's actually about being relevant. And at Followistic, we believe that one size fits all is a thing of the past. And cutting through, well, it's supposed to be straightforward, right? You write, they read, they like it or they don't, and they might just come back, you know, if they remember, but mostly they don't. So, sorry, this is not working. No. Okay. So yeah, we believe that one size fits all is a thing of the past. And yeah, cutting through today's content overload takes 2 things, relevance and timing. And Followistic makes that easy. We are a digital platform that provides online publishers the tools to engage their audience, understand their preferences and behavior, and create reader-centric content for them. So how we do it? We do it with content personalization, deep analytics, and white label notifications. First, we make sure your readers only get the content that they care about. With one click, they can start following their favorite topics or authors on your site, and they're only notified when you publish a new article on the content that they care about. Plus, you now know exactly what topics they like, because they just told you through our engagement widget. And we send out white label notifications to them, so they're branded with the publisher's brand, to notify them every time there's a new article on the topic they like. With Followistic, we achieve 25% more returning users than any average industry number, and people trust us to deliver since we started, because we've already delivered 47 million notifications to 350,000 subscribers all over the world, and we help partners bring 5 times more readers back to the website, spend 10 times less on the delivery and the entire service, and save up to 80% of admin time. So this is a testimonial from one of our clients. He has 20 million visitors each month, and he's really happy with our service, and we're working really closely with them together to create further features and solutions that are actually needed for publishers. Our business model is pretty straightforward. So it's a SaaS model based on the number of subscribers a publisher has. And it's really risk-free because you start for free with 250 subscribers. And once you start growing, we start earning with you. How we differentiate us is we're a comprehensive tool set that is time and cost effective. And what's most important for us is that we use technology to bridge the human communication. So we don't use AI to automate content, but we use technology, also AI, to bridge the conversation and create a direct communication channel between readers and publishers. Yeah, our team is pretty diverse. We're all from different countries. We're at the moment 5 people, 3 of which are full-time. We're looking also for funding at the moment. So if somebody wants to have a chat about, you know, the product or funding or whatever, we're right outside, and it would be nice to see you. Thank you.
Hallo, ich mache das auf Deutsch und ohne Präsentation. Ich bin Bernhard von Context Lab und bei uns geht es um Wissen, um das Begreifen von Wissen. Um Wissen zu begreifen, sind vor allem 2 Faktoren entscheidend. Der eine ist Zeit. Ich muss mich eine gewisse Zeit mit einem Thema beschäftigen, um es zu verstehen. Und das andere ist der Kontext, in dem diese Information steht. Ich muss also verstehen, begreifen können, welche verschiedenen Aspekte ein Thema ausmachen und wie sie miteinander zusammenhängen. Hier bei Context Lab haben dafür eine Lösung entwickelt, die bewährte Methoden zusammenführt, kombiniert und in einer Software vereint. Das eine sind Mindmappings, Concept Mappings, also eine bewährte Methode, um große Themen zu clustern, darzustellen. Das kombinieren wir mit Layern, also wir können Inhalte von der Übersicht ins Detail clustern, sodass man versteht, wie es tiefer geht. Und wir können in solche Concept Maps Inhalte einfügen. Das ist eine neue Form. Man kann diese Nodes in Concept Maps eben mit Content füllen, multimedial. Mit der visuellen Vermittlung und einem spielerischen User Interface schaffen wir es, dass Nutzer sehr, sehr lange in diesen Concept Maps bleiben und dann auch verstehen, um was es in diesem Thema geht und sich eine eigene Meinung bilden können. Wir haben ein einfach zu bedienendes Content-Management-System gebaut, das man ohne Programmierkenntnisse verwenden kann. Und wenn ihr also Themen habt, von denen ihr gerne hättet, dass sie verstanden werden, dann solltet ihr mit mir sprechen. Ich bin da draußen. Danke.
Hello, I'm Lena Spitt, the founder of the Story Market, and for the first time I'm actually giving this presentation in German. So whoever wants to learn more in English, later also outside. Unsere Geschichte begann eigentlich hier im Iran. 2017 habe ich genau dieses Buch veröffentlicht zu Innendesign im Iran. Im Eigenverlag und ohne Budget für Marketing blieb mir nicht viel anderes übrig, als auf Pressearbeit zu setzen. Es hat funktioniert und dabei ist mir noch viel mehr klar geworden. Der Iran ist ein Exotenstaat und Verlage oder auch Redaktionen sind immer interessiert an anderen Geschichten. Andererseits arbeiten aber Redaktionen heutzutage schon am Limit und deswegen können auch die Korrespondenten vor Ort gewisse Themen einfach nicht mehr abdecken. Daher entstand die Idee, wir wollen mit der Story Market Journalisten und Redaktionen dabei unterstützen, die Arbeit zu leisten, die sie möchten, nämlich Qualitätsjournalismus zu liefern. Wie tun wir das? Wir haben eine Online-Plattform gebaut, auf der wir freie Journalisten weltweit zusammenbringen mit Verlagen weltweit. Das heißt, freie Journalisten können ihre Artikel, die sie schon mal wo veröffentlicht haben, über uns international lizenzieren. Verlage können den Content on Demand einkaufen und auch übersetzen lassen oder auch freie Journalisten mit ihren Wunschgeschichten beauftragen. Das Panel widmet sich gleich dem Thema, wofür Leser heute zahlen. Die Erfahrung hat gezeigt, es sind die 3 E's. Emotionalität, Exzellenz und Exklusivität. Wir möchten den Verlagen helfen, genau solche Inhalte ihren Lesern zu liefern. Oh, das war zu weit, es tut mir leid. Wie tun wir das? Emotionalität, indem wir Reportagen, Interviews, Analysen liefern. Oh, Entschuldigung, das tut mir leid. Ja. Exzellenz, indem die freien Journalisten, die sich auf unserer Plattform befinden, alle einen ausgeklügelten Auswahlprozess durchlaufen haben, und Exklusivität, indem jeder Artikel nur exklusiv für diesen Sprachraum verkauft wird. Das heißt, Sie möchten einen Bericht aus dem Iran, der einfach ein Thema abseits des Sanktionsregimes beleuchtet oder vielleicht auch exklusive Interviews aus dem Silicon Valley. Dann können Sie sich gerne mit mir unterhalten. Ich bin ebenfalls draußen am Stand oder unsere Webseite besuchen und auf dem Laufenden bleiben, wenn wir online gehen. Dankeschön.
Thank you so much for presenting here on stage. As you heard, you can meet all of the startups outside. And I have another information for you before we start this panel. There's a meetup at 5. It's outside in the lounge of the Media Lab right across this room, and it's called Money for Nothing or Content for Free. Can media learn from the music industry? Oder in Deutsch, kann die Medienbranche von der Musikindustrie lernen? Nachher um 5, wenn es Sie interessiert, können Sie sich da zusammenfinden. Now we're going to talk about paid content here on stage, and our 3 guests are going to tell you that's why our readers become subscribers. Journalism needs to make money in the digital age. One way of doing that is getting readers to subscribe to paid content. But how many subscriptions is a single person willing to pay for? What motivates someone to pay for journalism? And what other tools of financing through readers are available? I'm looking forward to discuss these questions with Michael Silberman from Piano, Lutz Knappmann from WirtschaftsWoche, and Konny Gellenbeck from Taz. And our guests are going to come up on stage and introduce themselves with a little presentation. Welcome. Yeah. Are you going to start?
Sure.
Yeah, here.
Up here?
Up here, yeah.
Hello. So I'll tell you a little bit about Piano. Let's see. Is it going forward? Not yet. There. I'll tell you a little bit about Piano. And then I'll also give you a couple of small client examples so you can understand how we help them execute and drive their subscription businesses. So the sort of foundation of what we do, and I'll back up for 1 second and say what I do at Piano, I run our strategy team, which is the group that works with our publishers to help them succeed in digital subscriptions. So we do consulting and give them advice and help them perform better. And the sort of foundation of all of that ability and advice is this, the fact that there are millions of digital subscriptions on our platform, that we're managing identities for tens of millions of users, and that we see billions of interactions every single month. So we have all this data about what users do in the context of subscriptions, what behaviors contribute to that, and that allows us to do things like create machine learning based on that information, to develop research insights based on that information and understand the range of performance. And in addition, we actually actively manage subscription businesses for many of our clients. And so doing that active management means that we see what works and what doesn't. And so that gives us a lot of insights. We have a lot of clients, many of them in the DACH region, about 150 clients overall. And actually, with our recent acquisition of C-Sense, we're now up to around 300 clients. It's across multiple categories and different kinds of websites. So newspaper, legacy media companies that are now selling digital subscriptions, or digital natives like Business Insider, or television companies. And so we have all these different kinds of clients and see all these different behaviors. Large companies, small companies, large websites, small websites. The sort of fundamental thing that Piano does as a software platform is help you drive the right offer to drive the right action at the right time with a given user. So we measure user behavior, we allow you to create rules, and we then we apply those rules to each user as they're going on the website. One of the ways that we sort of think about it, both in terms of our software and services, is the customer journey. So what's that progression from new user to returning user to engaged user to known user and finally to converted and subscribed user? And at each spot along the way, depending on where they're coming in, say from a direct link or from Facebook or Google or an email, we can target them differently depending on those behaviors. So now I'll talk about a couple of our clients. Funke is on our platform, and they have 8 websites that they're using Piano on. They use it to manage subscriptions, but in addition to subscriptions, they also do things like ask people to turn off their ad blocker, which is a great way to sort of start a relationship with a client, with a user, and get them to take an action on your website. We get them to sign up for newsletters. We have them register in order to get access to something like commenting. So all those little steps along the way towards subscription contribute to that deeper relationship. And Funke, using all of those tactics over the past year, has grown their subscriptions by over 1,000%. So they've seen some very, very good results. Business Insider is another one of our clients, owned by Axel Springer here in Germany. And the story for Business Insider is a pretty interesting one. First of all, it's a story of constant testing. They also evolved their product significantly over time. So when they started out in January of 2017, they were asking users to turn off their ad blocker or pay us. So lots of people turned off their ad blocker. Very few people were willing to pay. By the end of 2017, they decided to launch BI Prime, which was a freemium model where certain content was locked and only available to subscribers. But a lot of the content on their website, most of the content on their website, was still available for free. And you can see at the end of 2017, they start to see more success, and that revenue line starts to go up. But it really started to go up in sort of March, April of 2018, when they started aggressively testing with some help from the Piano team, from my team. And once they started doing that constant testing and learning, both of their marketing messages and UX and the way that they talked about pricing and what their actual prices were, and constant testing of their editorial to see what stories actually drove subscriptions, that's when they started to see real significant growth. So if I leave you with just a couple of thoughts, there we go. To leave you with just a couple of thoughts, we believe that the most important things are to constantly test, to know your audience, and to build products that help them succeed and have value for them in terms of their subscriptions. Thank you.
If you want to go out of water, you can sit over there. Yeah, okay.
Good afternoon. My name is Lutz Knappmann, and I am head of digital of WirtschaftsWoche in Düsseldorf for about 2 years now. And the question, what readers are willing to pay for, is basically the one question we discuss every single day. And we discuss that very openly, and we confront the whole editorial staff with an answer to that question every single day, because we present them in every conference in the morning which of their stories have converted best, and which, on the other hand, have made the best reach. Because we have a freemium model for about 2.5 years now, which is really a very serious decision to stick to that model and not to switch to a metered model, for example, as our colleagues from Handelsblatt did. So we have to decide every single day which story we label as a premium story, as paid content on our homepage, and which story our readers can get for free. And the strategy behind that is, and you heard the term relevance already on the stage a few minutes ago, for which target group, which story has which relevance. We have, as opposed to, for example, Süddeutsche Zeitung I was working before, as a weekly business magazine, we have the challenge to synchronize a weekly magazine with a 24/7 online outlet. And there are basically 2 factors that make paid content successful for us. and that is A, do not think in single stories, think in topics, and think in a package of stories on a certain economic topic, and decide which story you give away for free on which channel, which story you are going to print first, which story you are going to publish online first, and which of these stories get the premium badge, with the goal to create visibility and reach for your topics with some of the free articles, and in the middle of that present the premium articles and hope to convert readers because they are interested in that special topic. And that works pretty well. When I started in the beginning of last year, we were way below 10,000 digital subscribers, and since then we multiplied that number. I tend to use the term hockey stick curve in terms of our subscription business, and although I'm not going to really talk specific numbers, we are really happy to see what has happened since, because none of us is doing magic. There are two key factors, in my opinion, that were very important for that development, and that is focus your content strategy, be clear what people get from you, and be sure that that matches their interests, so is relevant for them, and stop doing all the stuff you as a journalist might like, but nobody wants to have from you. So as a WirtschaftsWoche, be a economic or a business magazine on any channel, in print, on social, in the web. Do your core business. And the second factor is get the whole company to work for that goal. Get your sales department, get your ad sales department, get your development teams to add on that specific and focused goal. And that's not no rocket science, that's not magic, it's just focusing on what you are doing best and focus on what you know your readers want from you. And that immediately has an effect, as we saw in the last 12 to 15 months. Thank you.
Einfach auf das Grüne, ne? Yeah. Hello, my name is Konny Gellenbeck. I'm working for the Taz Cooperative and the Taz Panter Foundation. I show you some facts about our history and our future. What is Taz? Taz is a brand, an alternative voice, a project, a community, and a cooperative. And these are our journalistic projects. We have 95,000 readers and users. They pay for our products. This is the structure behind it. We have 220 employees, but what is very important, we have 17,000 supporters for our online version. They pay for it. And 19,300 cooperative members. These are the ways of solidarity of our company. The beginning, the cooperative, the foundation, and our no paywall Taz product. The beginning. The Taz started with young people from the political left movement. They are in projects for women's rights and anti-nuclear movement. They did not agree the topics they were worried about were covered in traditional newspapers. So they want to make an own newspaper and asked readers to become persons from the political movement to become readers, and 7,000 signed a subscription in demand. So the Taz was founded, and it was a crowdfunding project, you would say today. 12 years later, we founded the Taz Cooperative. How it works, 3,000 readers became cooperative members. You pay 500 euros to become nobody, to be the major shareholder. You can only pay 100,000. you get no taxes, and every person has one vote if he pays 500 euros or 100,000. And in the beginning, the cooperative was poor and not so attractive, but in the meanwhile, we built a house and make much investments in our company. The foundation in 2008, we make it during the financial crisis and found 800 people to make this foundation. In the meanwhile, we have 5,200 people. They give us money, and for the core of the TAZ. And this is our special project, the German-Turkish online platform, who is financed by 500 people. They give money for this project. And this is tatsächlich, not our paywall. We have 7,200 supporters. We say in the beginning that information is a human right. Some people can pay for it, some others not. So we found 17,000 people, they pay for it. The online version is free for everybody, but these people pay 5 euros every month. That are nearly 100,000 every month from all these people. And it shows that TAZ is not a project of one generation, and this will be our future. That is it. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing these insights with us. If you have any questions during the session, you can use our digital tool. It's called Slido. You find it if you use the hashtag MTM19 and the room number, which is 14C. You can type in the questions either in German or English, or if you want, you can just ask in person at the end. Michael, I'd like to start with you. There are a lot of misconceptions about how successful subscription models work. What do media companies need to know before they start working on one?
I think the first thing, and Lutz and I were talking about this over lunch, the first thing is to know your audience, to really understand your audience, understand their relationship with your brand, with what it does, what they value about it, and what they expect from it, sort of what the needs are that they have from you. Lutz's publication has done that really, really in a very smart way and mirrors a lot of what we tell our clients in strategy projects, where you start with that audience, you define what you're doing for them very, very clearly, and you constantly focus on, are you delivering value to them? And that's what builds a successful subscription business. It starts with the actual editorial product, with the thing that you're putting out into the world. If you don't have that, and you don't have that audience connection and understanding, then it will be impossible to build a subscription product, a successful one. Yeah. After that, then it's about optimization and sort of understanding the mechanics of subscriptions and sort of all of that, which can be learned and tested into.
Lutz, you explain to us how you're doing it at WirtschaftsWoche right now. You think in topics and you design article packages. How did you come up with that idea? Was it based on data? Was it an experiment?
It was. It was basically both. I mean, you see that relatively fast if you publish a story in a certain topic, and the reflex you have as an online journalist is, how can I add to that? And if you see that a second story on that worked as well, and you start publishing paid content stories within it, and you see a sudden rise in your subscription, it's a really, I mean, it's obvious to focus on a strategy like that. WirtschaftsWoche has one speciality, maybe in comparison to other outlets. We are rather small, and we crunch the numbers again and again and again to evaluate the risk we can take in terms of reach and in terms of ad revenues, and what that tells us about how strict we can build our paywall. And our colleagues from Handelsblatt have a rather strict metered paywall, and that works perfectly fine for them. And when we looked in these numbers and compared it to our business case, it would not work for us because we are too small, and we do capitalize on the advertisement side well enough or too good to risk all that. So that was a rather fast decision to stick to that model, and then you start thinking about how do you optimize your freemium model, and what's the, on the one hand, what's the factors to decide which story is premium and which not, and what can you do to create visibility for these topics.
Konny, you're saying your principle at Taz is solidarity. Can you explain to us how that works and how your readers differ from readers elsewhere? Would it work at any other medium?
I think they come from the political left, liberal left. They have a special relationship to the Taz, and they look how themes we do when we have an investigative story about Hannibal, a right-wing structure in the German army. And then we have much contact with our readers because we are the first newspaper we publish it. We have special themes to women's rights and refugees. So our readers like this story and our point of view on the themes. And we, in our relationship to our owners and cooperative members, we make much work to be in contact with them. They get emails every week, not a newsletter, but a personal email about the situation of the Taz, and so they are in near contact with us.
Mm-hmm. What do you know about the readers who subscribe to WirtschaftsWoche? What are they like? What are they looking for?
Increasingly more, and that's a good that's good news, because when we started, we didn't know very much. And to be honest, the most interesting thing you learn to know about your readers is not the numbers, it's really the whys. So we had some focus groups not so many weeks ago, and that was, again, really eye-opening for me to sit behind the famous mirrored glass and watch 10 of your subscribers discuss about your product and finally learn how they use your product. And what we now know is they want on any channel a magazine from us. They do not want news from us. There are other sites that do that perfectly fine, so they want us to explain, to go deeper, and to be surprising. And that's basically the question we ask in the editorial team every single day. What's our new and surprising perspective and take on that topic? And if we do not have one, we do not publish a story on that because we can't win. The effort would be wasted. And the second thing that is very important for us is to know that WirtschaftsWoche is rather a lean-back medium. So people do not read WirtschaftsWoche because they want to base your business decisions on our fast business news, but they want to learn what they can do themselves in private. So either they understand monetary policy. Many of them told us that it's very important for them to be able to discuss with their friends. So we help them basically to get literate in economic discussions. And the other relevance is obviously monetary ideas and to help them make right decision in terms of their personal finances or building a house or whatever that. And these are basically is mirrored in the numbers we see every day. These are the stories that work best.
Michael, media companies are looking for general advice how they can build a user-first strategy. Is it unique for every media company? Do you really have to dig into that?
The sort of method is the same for every company, but the outcome is going to be different. Depends on the audience that you've built up, depends on the content. And so there are certainly similarities, but each company sort of has to go down that path themselves and understand it. You know, the value for the Wirtschaft audience is very different than the value for the Taz audience. And both are successful businesses, but obviously quite different content and quite different audiences. The essential process, though, is the same. The kinds of things like Lutz was talking about, of doing focus groups, talking to your audience, actually hearing what they say about you and what they tell you about their relationship to you and how they use you is very important to understand.
So what's a typical time span to build up that strategy?
When we're doing a sort of deep strategy project for our clients, that's about a 5 or 6 month process. So it starts with about a month and a half of developing an understanding of the audience. And the way that we do it is first we start with a sort of quantitative analysis, looking at the behavior of the audience. And from those behaviors, developing a sort of initial idea of what the potential audience segments are. Sort of what are the slices of audience that are showing different kinds of behaviors, perhaps consuming one particular area of content, or different sort of silos or slices of content, or perhaps reading across the entire website. Very often we find that the readers who end up becoming subscribers are the ones who sort of use the entire site. Then from there, once we have those sort of candidate personas, we actually start talking to the audience and sort of validate those ideas and hear what they say. We follow that up with surveys. Then we do brainstorming with the content team to figure out, all right, now that we know these things about your audience, what should you make? You know, what new should you do to sort of serve them well that you maybe aren't doing now? And then lastly, we go through sort of business modeling, price testing, and develop a go-to-market strategy. So it's a pretty involved process. That's when you're starting from nothing. You can also launch and then test, like Business Insider did. You know, they started with one idea, they pivoted to another idea, and then tested their way into success.
Maybe if I may add one thought on that, because that was kind of the most important thing I started to understand at some point in time, that if you only look on your numbers and maybe on your personas and socio-demographics, that might be misleading, because there are quite a lot of outlets out there that basically serve the same audiences. So at some point in time we started discussing not about social demographics or age or geography, but about use cases. And that's what I described with not base your business decisions on that, but regarding that as a purely personal coach or something like that. And you have the same audience as many other outlets, but you serve a completely different purpose.
Yeah, we frame it in terms of a technique or philosophy called design thinking, which is putting the user at the center and starting with an understanding of that user and trying to understand their jobs to be done. That's another sort of term to describe what Lutz was talking about.
Konny, how is your pay model being discussed within the editorial team? Are there editors who are saying, we want a hard paywall, we could make more money that way?
When we started with it, there was much criticism about it, because all the other newspapers make paywalls, and the people fear that we make a mistake. But in the meanwhile, every new project has its problem, but in the meanwhile, all the staff likes this model because it's a unique selling point for the Taz. We are different, the people can read us. And we are a very small newspaper. When we have a paywall, the people have not the possibility to come in contact with us. So it's very good that it is free. And in the meanwhile, we have 17,000 persons that give money. And so we see it's a possibility to earn money. And they are younger people and also older people. It's for the Taz not only charming, but it's a competitive advance for the Taz. And I think it works very good for us.
Yeah. When you gain new members to the cooperative, do they know about you online? Is it word of mouth? How do they get to know there's a cooperative?
We now change very much because we have on the online version, we make campaigns for new cooperative members, for younger people also, and now we have a new project to make a new microsite for younger people. So it is more attractive to become a cooperative member. You must see, in the beginning, 1992, the people say, oh, it's old-fashioned, how you can do it. But in the meanwhile, cooperatives are very modern, and in all walks of life, you find them, so also younger people look for them. And we are very happy that 25% of the cooperative members are younger than 40 years. And so for us, it's good that also younger people are coming. And we have two structures. They can say, when I want to support the Taz and not to make a subscription for the daily printed version or the weekend subscription, then you can give €5 for the online version, or you become owner of the Taz and give in 20 installments €500 and you become owner. And so the people do this and that.
Lutz, have you experimented with different pricing models and saw a difference how many people subscribe?
Yes and no. We basically reduced the number of pricing models for our products in the last year. There's one interesting thing that not only refers to WirtschaftsWoche, but also to many other outlets I have experienced. The sensitivity for the pricing, once somebody is a subscriber, is very low. When I see the increases in pricing for Süddeutsche Zeitung, as well as our own price increases that didn't stop the growth, not even slowed it down. So once you have converted somebody, it's rather likely that he doesn't care about a few euros more or less. Of course, the 50% off campaign works quite well. All the time we do something like that. But there is another interesting experiment we made and others in our company made. And that's the question whether if you give people 4 weeks trial for free, does that work better than 4 weeks for some sort of pricing? And the interesting fact was that charging them at least €1 or something works better, because they not only are more likely to stay, but indeed they are more likely to convert into a trial subscription. Maybe one of the just psychological factors is that we want quite a lot of data from them, and it's easier to argue, please give me your bank details if we charge something, than okay, it costs nothing, but we want the data anyway. So there are so many tiny little screws you have to drive and to test.
Yeah, those tiny screws is the whole story.
Yeah, because I wanted to ask you, Michael, there's a major drop-off once a user enters a subscription process. A recent study I read was talking about 90% worse if they try to register mobile. Why are checkout processes so bad, and how can you fix it?
Yeah, we don't see a 90% drop-off. That's very high. We more typically see in the range of 60% of users that are sort of making it through checkout once they start checkout. There is a pretty big range though, and we actually see, this is just an interesting little tidbit, we actually see higher drop-off if you use social login. So if you register with Google or Facebook, as opposed to registering by typing in your email and inventing a password, users who have taken the trouble to type their email and enter a password are more likely to make it through checkout than users who are doing the sort of low friction registration. Now, the advantage of low friction registration is that you've got them registered. You can then market to them and say, oh, you didn't finish checkout. Do you want to do this? We'll give you 10% off. You can do sort of remarketing to them once you've got that information if they've fallen out of the checkout. But yes, streamlining the information that you collect, not having too many fields to fill out on that registration form, making payment methodology as easy as possible. So have Apple Pay, PayPal, Google Pay, those sort of easy payment methods, especially on mobile, are all absolutely essential. We've seen some other interesting data about PayPal. There are two sort of main sources of churn, of users sort of becoming lost subscribers. One is what you'd call voluntary churn or explicit churn, where people decide they don't want to continue to subscribe. So they turn off auto renew or they explicitly cancel their subscription. And typically we see in the first month of a subscription about 75% of the churn is because of those explicit cancels. But when you get out to a year, so say it's an annual subscription and they're on their first annual renewal, that actually drops down and 60% of the churn is involuntary churn. So your credit card number changed or your expiration date changed and it wasn't updated in the system. And so you sort of accidentally lose these users who weren't actually choosing to cancel. With PayPal, those rates are about half. And we think that's because when a user is using PayPal, they're sort of constantly using it and keeping their payment information updated. And they probably have multiple payment methods stored in PayPal. And so you actually eliminate most of the involuntary churn by your users who sign up with PayPal.
I totally agree. There is, for most of at least the German digital subscription offerings, much room to improve in terms of the funnel and in terms of the data that is collected. But from my own experience, it's basically a conflict of interest, and it's a discussion you have to have within your company, because you have your sales colleagues who, for reasons, are interested in gaining as much data as possible. And if I, as somebody from the editorial side, argue, why don't you just let them enter their email address and that's it? They, for the absolute right reasons, tell me that it's really hard to start converting potential subscribers via email, and it's much better if you can reach them by phone. So you always have to find a compromise that makes it easy enough, but gives your sales colleagues enough data and enough possibilities to address people.
Konny, if a media startup, a young media company would come up to you and ask you, we want to be donation-based, we don't want to have paid content, what would you advise them? For what type of media company is it? What type of media company can use a donation-based model or a cooperative?
You see, in the last 10 years, you have some media companies, they try to make support by readers or community building, Krautreporter in Germany or Mediapart in France or Republik in Switzerland. And I think it's possible that you have you must have another view on society. You must be unique, because many people say all the newspapers and all the online medias are the same. You need something unique, and then you must put much work to be in contact with the people, because we make many things. We have a good team for social media. We make Twitter and Facebook and all this, but we make also a big event always in April with 3,000 readers. They come in real time to Berlin to visit the Taz and to look at our building, to the journalists, to our themes. We make many small meetings with people all over the country, in Stuttgart, in Flensburg, and in Rottach-Egern. And that is very necessary to be in contact with the people, to have a high quality in the journalism, to have a good brand, and to put much work in this personal contact.
I was going to say, you know, the shift that the overall media business is going through is that shift from a sort of mass attention-based model where you don't really know your audience to a much more intimate model that is about user engagement. I think Taz and other similar companies are the sort of purest expression of that, of building up that deep relationship with their readers. But any subscription business, whether it's freemium or metered or donation-based, has to think about that relationship with the audience and building that relationship, building up user engagement, developing trust, so that they'll, you know, trust you to serve them well and also to, you know, respect their payments and so on.
I have an ethical question for you. A Reuters report predicts that the rise of Paywall will shut off more people from quality news and make the internet harder to navigate. Consumer irritation will build this year, leading to a combination of more news avoidance. What kind of responsibility should journalism have at this point?
I think most of the models have at least some access, right? Whether it's a metered model or a freemium model or a donation-based model, there is access at the core. And so there's no question that journalism needs to find the balance between developing a sustainable business, because if you don't have the revenue, then you can't even serve society, but between serving society and developing a business that means you'll continue to be able to do quality journalism and you know, sort of serve the democratic ideals of that journalism is sort of based on. So it's about finding the balance. Yeah, I don't see any other path, though. That not everybody can be a Taz.
I think all newspapers have a big problem, because now we make an experience because of the young people of the climate change from Fridays for Future. They never would read the Taz print version. They never would read the Taz online version. And we make a newsletter by WhatsApp. Every evening we send it to 2,500 young people. They are younger than 20 years old. And that is the only possibility to be in contact with them. They don't read Süddeutsche or other newspapers, so I think we have to look for other forms to be in contact with these young people, and we know that it is a long way to make them to subscribers or something like this, but it is now necessary to come in contact with them, because nobody has the key to come to these young people and to get their addresses or something like this. They don't like it, and they are interested in themes, and that is the special thing, to do something together with them.
I think it's a really difficult question to answer for a publishing company, because yes, you need a viable business model, because otherwise there will be no journalism from your company anyway. But still, as was described before, you have to find ways to reach audiences and new audiences, but don't want to find the easiest answer, but I think it's a question we also have to answer on an education perspective. We have to tell people that journalism is worth a price, and even more important, we have to tell people and we have to teach people to differentiate between fake news and journalistic products, because I see a problem there, being especially young audience, being confronted with everything they see on social media and not being able to differentiate whether they can believe that or not. And the more of the quality journalism is behind a paywall, the bigger the risk is that they don't even see the quality journalism. So I think the discussion has to start way earlier before we start talking about pay models.
We're already out of time. I'd love to continue the discussion with you. It was very interesting. If you have more questions for our panel guests, feel free to go up and talk to them after this panel, because now we have a keynote speech by the founder and managing director of the Media Lab. Thank you for being here. I see we have a lot to discuss about paid content, journalist responsibility, so thank you for coming.